They used my business cards as coasters during dinner. That's how little they thought of me. My mom even joked, "Luna, honey, when you're done playing CEO, let us know how unemployment feels." Everyone at the table laughed except me. I just clenched my jaw and smiled. They didn't know I had already shipped my first international order that morning. Before we go deeper, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you believe in silent success and sweet revenge. My Uncle Brad said, "Here's to real jobs, not pipe dreams from the basement." My sister Kayla leaned over, whispering loud enough for everyone to hear. She still uses duct tape on her laptop. How's she going to run a global business? I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, but I didn't flinch because what they didn't know was that my products had just been picked up by a boutique in Paris, and the email sitting in my drafts was from a major investor in New York waiting for my final approval. But they didn't care about that. They saw me as the girl who gave up law school to design custom planners from her garage, the same garage they mocked every Thanksgiving. "Maybe you should have just married rich like normal girls," Kayla added with that smug smile. Mom sipped her wine and nodded. "Some people just aren't made for the spotlight." And right then, my phone buzzed under the table. I looked. One line lit up my screen: "Congrats, you're live in 37 countries now." I froze. My chest tightened, not from fear, but from the fire building inside me. I was done being their joke, but I didn't say a word, not yet, because I had a bigger stage in mind, a family gathering next week with cameras, guests, and a surprise they'd never see coming. And when I speak next, no one at that table will laugh again. The following Friday, our entire extended family gathered at my cousin's engagement party. It was a fancy rented hall, champagne glasses, string lights, fake smiles. I walked in wearing the same $40 dress they mocked last Christmas, but this time, I wore it like armor. Aunt Denise spotted me first. "Oh, look, Luna's here, still running your little sticker shop," she chuckled, sipping rose. Before I could respond, Kayla jumped in. "She says it's international now." The table burst out laughing. Maybe she meant she ships her failure globally, my cousin Josh smirked. But I kept my head high. I had learned long ago, when you're holding a royal flush, you don't need to shout, you just wait for the right moment to flip the cards. I looked across the hall and gave a tiny nod. That's when the event host stepped onto the mic. "Before we begin, we have a short surprise message from one of our very own guests, Miss Luna Bennett." Heads turned, glasses paused midair. I walked up, heels echoing like thunder, and took the mic. "I know many of you see me as the girl with the garage hobby." I began scanning their confused faces, but I thought it's time I share a few numbers. The screen behind me lit up. Global presence, 37 countries. Last quarter revenue, $4.8 million. Partnered brands, Vogue, Amazon, Target. Gasps, forks dropped. Uncle Brad's wine spilled on his suit. Mom's face turned pale, and Kayla, her mouth hung open like she forgot how to close it. I smiled gently. "Turns out the pipe dream pays better than all your corporate jobs combined." But I wasn't done yet. I clicked to the next slide. Featured in Forbes, the garage girl who disrupted stationery. The silence was loud. For once, no one had a snide remark. They just stared, speechless. But just as I was about to walk off stage, something happened. Josh stood up. "Wait, if you're that rich, then why did you borrow money from Grandma last year?" I turned back, smiled softly, and said, "That was a test, and she passed. But you failed, because that money came back to her tenfold with shares in my company." Now everyone looked toward Grandma, who winked and raised her champagne. The same people who mocked me were now standing in a room built on the very brand they laughed at. After the event, everything shifted, but not in the way you'd think. They didn't apologize, they didn't congratulate me, they adapted. Suddenly, they all wanted to be part of my story. Uncle Brad emailed me his consulting resume. Kayla sent a text that said, "Hey, sis, maybe we can collab. I have influencer friends." Even Mom cooked dinner the next night, acting like she hadn't mocked me for years. But I wasn't interested in pretending everything was fine. I didn't forget the wine-stained insults, the backhanded laughs, or how they once said my planner business was just arts and crafts. I smiled at them all politely, professionally, like a CEO handling amateurs. Then came the dinner at home, a private gathering with just my immediate family. Dad poured wine and said, "Luna, I think it's time you let us help manage things. We are your family after all." "Help." I set down my fork slowly and leaned in. "Dad, you once told me I was wasting my life. You told me to sell my printer and get a real job, now you want in? He cleared his throat. That was before we knew how serious you were. I laughed quietly. No, it was before you knew how successful I was. Then I pulled out the folder I had brought. Inside were contracts, not for partnerships, not for investments, but for removal of names, their names from my company trust. I've decided, I said calmly, to restructure everything. The shares I promised when I started, they're being voided, effective immediately. Mom's fork clattered on her plate. Kayla's voice rose. You can't just cut us off like that. Oh, I can, I said, standing up, because when I begged for help, you laughed. When I worked through tears, you ignored me, and now that I've built something, you want to collect the reward. Dad tried to interrupt. We're your blood. I looked at him stone cold. And yet you treated strangers with more respect than me. I pushed the folder across the table. This isn't revenge, it's release. They just stared, stunned, as I walked out. But what they didn't know, the biggest blow was still coming, and this time, the whole country would watch. 3 weeks later, I stood in front of a glass building in Manhattan, 32 floors tall, my company's new headquarters. Reporters were everywhere, cameras clicked. A giant banner stretched across the top, Lunaria, the global brand that started in a garage. I was being interviewed live on national television. As I stepped up to the podium, the host smiled and said, Luna, your story has inspired millions, from a garage to global domination. What message do you have for those who doubted you? I took a breath, looked straight into the camera, and said, never underestimate the quiet ones. We don't shout, we build. Across the country, people cheered. Online views exploded. Hashtags like #GarageQueen and #LunaWins trended within minutes. Back in my hometown, my family sat watching the live stream in silence. Then came the real twist. During the broadcast, the anchor turned to me again and said, before we go, we have one last surprise announcement from Luna herself. I took the mic, paused, and smiled. I'm officially launching a new grant called the Underdog Fund, $10 million dedicated to supporting young entrepreneurs who've been laughed at, mocked, or dismissed, just like I was. The room burst into applause, but I wasn't done. One more thing, I said, turning to the side. A massive screen lit up behind me, showing the names of the first 10 recipients of the fund. My family members leaned forward from their couch, expecting to see Kayla, Brad, Dad, or Mom. Instead, the names belonged to 10 kids from foster homes, single-parent families, and underprivileged backgrounds, people I had mentored in secret, people with raw passion and zero support. I looked straight into the camera and delivered the final blow. To those who once told me I needed a real job, thank you, you made me unstoppable. Back at home, Kayla stormed out of the living room. Mom covered her face in shock, Dad stared blankly at the TV, and Grandma? She just smiled. She knew this day would come. As I walked off stage, my assistant whispered, Luna, there's a line of investors waiting to meet you. But I wasn't interested in the money, not anymore. Now, I wanted to build a legacy, one that had nothing to do with the people who once laughed and everything to do with those who were never given a chance. And just when they thought they'd lost me forever, something even bigger was coming. One final twist they'd never recover from. 2 months passed. The world now knew my name. I was on magazine covers, podcast interviews, and business panels. Lunaria had crossed $100 million in revenue. But behind the success, something personal still lingered, something I hadn't told anyone. My mother had been calling, not once, but every day for the last week. I never picked up until one night out of nowhere, a message came through, a photo. Grandma in a hospital bed. My chest tightened. I didn't wait. I flew home that night. When I walked into the hospital room, she smiled weakly and whispered, I knew you'd come. She held my hand and said, you were always meant for something big. I just wanted to see it before I go. Tears burned my eyes, but I stayed strong. You made me believe when no one else did, I whispered back. All of this, started because of you. She passed away 2 days later, quietly, peacefully. At the funeral, the entire family showed up. Kayla wore fake designer shades and a guilt-ridden expression. Dad approached me after the service, holding a folded letter. This was from your grandmother, she said only you should open it. Later that night, I sat in her old armchair, unfolded the paper, and read the words that changed everything. Luna, I knew they'd try to take everything once you made it, so I made sure they couldn't. The house, the land, and my savings, they're all under your name now. But more than that, I've kept one last thing safe. Go to the attic. I rushed back to her house, heart pounding, climbed the dusty stairs, opened the wooden chest she once told us never to touch. Inside, a black binder, documents, photos, receipts, and a video cassette labeled for Luna's eyes only. I played it. There she was, Grandma, years younger. She spoke clearly, confidently. Luna, if you're seeing this, then you've made it. I knew you would, but there's something you deserve to know. The trust fund your father said never existed, the one he claimed was lost in taxes, it was never gone. He used it to start his second business under Kayla's name. They stole it from you. I sat frozen. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every insult. All while my family had secretly built Kayla's fake marketing company on money meant for me. But now, I had evidence and a name powerful enough to expose them. The next morning, I went public. A press release, a video statement, screenshots of the trust documents, their names, their lies. It went viral in 6 hours. News outlets ate it up. Family stole her inheritance, now she owns theirs. Their business licenses were frozen, their reputations crushed. Kayla posted a tearful apology video, begging me to forgive her. But it was too late. I bought their house, leased it back to them for triple the market rate. When Dad called, I didn't yell, I just said, "You taught me business, remember?" I learned well, and I hung up. I now owned everything they once used to shame me. And yet, I didn't feel bitter, I felt free. Because the little girl they laughed at, she wasn't just successful. She became a legacy.